What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk live from the annual league meetings here in Palm Beach, Florida. I'm Noah Stratfine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, here at the meetings, so much conversation. A lot of it revolving around Aaron Rodgers and where things are. Aaron, DK Metcalf throwing on a beach somewhere yesterday. Did they just run into each other? I have a hard time believing it, but we're diving into that. So much more, everything that I'm hearing down here at Palm Beach. Very excited to bring it all to you. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Download us anywhere you get your audio podcast. Check out all our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. If I get blurry, I apologize. Wi-Fi is not the greatest. We're rocking a hotspot right now, but we're going to make it through this thing, and I'm pretty excited for it. Plus, at the end of all this, we got some sad but exciting news. I'm gonna say sad but exciting, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Nick, it's a beautiful one here in good old Palm Beach, Florida. It rained yesterday, and it was still beautiful. I don't know how it happens. I was telling you the story of yesterday, went by coffee, big coffee guy, bumped into a little knickknack behind me, caught it, set it down, looked at the price tag. That knickknack was $400. So reflexes saved me a good chunk of change on that one. That's how crazy this place is. Hope you're doing well there. And, I got to say good day because I still have $400 in my pocket and didn't spend it on a broken teapot.
Yeah, no $400 teapots where I'm at right now, but the weather's nice, so you can't complain about that. Good. No, I mean, I'm excited to break down everything we've heard because after months of, well, this is what they probably are thinking, we got to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And actually, two horses were able to tell us what they were thinking, and that's Omar and Mike Tomlin. So excited to break down their thoughts and opinions of this entire saga.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the best place to start here is we got to speak with both of them. Mike Tomlin spoke yesterday to a smaller group of media members. He spoke this morning at a breakfast at about 7:45 in the morning. If you didn't see the guy that just walked by me, you probably saw a picture online of him taking a little nap at 7:45 in the morning. And then Omar Khan spoke to, again, another select group of media members this afternoon, and obviously all answers are all questions were on the table. Aaron Rodgers being the biggest one, but George Pickens, Jaylen Warren, the Steelers draft plans, so much was discussed throughout all of it. And then we wake up this morning and we get some news that Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, working out together, which, I mean, good sign about a lot of things. Let's start with Mike Tomlin yesterday. I think that's the biggest one, the most telling of them so far. And then we'll just kind of go in chronological order here of how things have transpired over the last 24 hours. So Tomlin spoke to us yesterday, which I'll tell a story. I know nobody cares about my personal life, but here we go. So yesterday we're supposed to be here 11 o'clock in the morning. I get a text or I get a text saying, be here at 11 a.m. All right, great. I could do that. Flew into Fort Lauderdale. My uncle lives there. Spent the night with him and some family. Left in the morning. It's about a 45-minute drive. I was like, all right, sounds good. 10 o'clock, get 9:45, get in the car, type it in. I type in where we are, like where I am currently, and then I type in the hotel that I was supposed to go pick up Chris Halleck from DK Pittsburgh Sports at. Both of them say 45 minutes away. I was like, all right, we're headed in the right direction here. I drive to the hotel. I pull into the hotel. Call Chris. Hey, I'm outside. I'm in the white car on the side. He calls me back 5 minutes later. Yo, dude, you're not here. Like, no, I'm pretty convinced that I'm here. I'm pretty sure that I'm here. I was like, send me your location. Maybe there's two hotels in the same area. Sends me his location. I pump it in. I am not at his hotel, okay? Actually, in fact, which this is my fault, okay? Didn't have any idea. I've never driven across the state of Florida. I'm in Miami, okay? Not Palm Beach. He's in Palm Beach. You want to know the distance there? Hour and 20 minutes. Not anywhere close. So 11 o'clock, it's It actually is. It's 10:47 on the nose when I get that. I flew up here, drove as fast as I could across the state of Florida. Mike Tomlin, I get there. I'm like, all right, we're good. We made it. We survived. Mike Tomlin talks to us at 4:15 in the afternoon. So shout out to Mike T. Didn't have to worry there, but it was a time. It was a trip. I'll say that. Then he opens up about everything. And I think really it's because I drove 2.5 hours to get here. And that's why he was so telling. The Aaron Rodgers thing. I mean, there's so many different avenues, but I think the biggest thing is Tomlin really kind of let it on that he's confident, which is something that we have known throughout this entire process, that the Steelers are confident, that offers have not changed. And at the same time, kind of hinted that he understands or knows when an answer is coming, and knows that him and Rodgers have an understanding of what is coming in the coming days or minutes or weeks or months or, whatever. And he obviously dove into everything that means and whether it impacts their draft plans or impacts free agency or so on and so forth. But the big thing with those two is communication has been consistent with Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have not been in the dark as much as we all believe that they have been in the dark. And I think that's very important. He obviously highlighted that the meeting went really good when they did visit, or when Rodgers visited the Pittsburgh Steelers, but just spoke that they're on somewhat of the same page and that he's not putting words in Aaron's mouth and he's not guessing on when Aaron Rodgers is going to give an answer. But it sure kind of seems like he knows when that deadline comes, and maybe an answer comes beforehand, but probably not after. And that most likely gives the Steelers some peace of mind. Now, nothing's guaranteed, and it does not mean that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But then you get Aaron Rodgers thrown with DK Metcalf, and you're thinking, put two and two together, why else is he throwing with DK Metcalf? And Omar Khan's response to that is, I don't know anything about that, but if he did, good. Yeah, why is it good? Because Aaron Rodgers, the future Minnesota Vikings quarterback, is practicing with DK Metcalf? No, because Aaron Rodgers, the future Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, is throwing with his top wide receiver target in DK Metcalf. Just to add on to where they go from there if Rodgers does not sign, and this is a rabbit hole, so I'll just kind of, lay it out with Mason real fast and then ask you your opinion on everything that's gone down, because, you've heard we've tossed everything in group chats and, it's not like the news cycle hasn't been going crazy. Mason Rudolph seems to be option B for the Steelers, although they won't name option B. They won't say it's option A versus option B. They're just simply saying they have a lot of faith in Mason Rudolph if he has to be the starting quarterback in 2025. Omar Khan said that it's a safe bet another veteran quarterback is on the roster. Mike Tomlin kind of made it sound like if that is the case, it's not necessarily a big name veteran quarterback, that it's not a guy that's going to come in here and shake everything up like Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Russ was ever really an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everything that I've been told is that Russ was so far down the list that he was almost gone before the season ended, and they were just very comfortable with that situation. They seem to be more comfortable with Mason. Adding a veteran, if Rodgers is not the case, is not the guy, is on the table, but it sure sounds like Aaron Rodgers is the guy. And then just to top this off, to end my rant, to give you the floor here, speaking to people around here, sources, executives, owners, that kind of stuff, there is a very, very strong belief that this thing is pretty much done and that Aaron Rodgers is pretty much already coming to Pittsburgh. Now, that could change. It's Aaron Rodgers. We have no idea what's going to happen. When? Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, who knows? But there's a pretty strong belief that Aaron is going to be a Steeler and that things are finally at a place where a resolution is coming, might be coming quick, and we'll see what happens from there. I'll give you the floor on that one. Tomlin speaks, Omar speaks. You got to watch both of them. Strong belief in that, and then obviously DK Metcalf. Your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah, the one thing that jumped out and has made me think the most is when Omar Khan said, yeah, we're still going to bring in probably 2 quarterbacks. And now the thing is like we were all expecting that. We're all thinking, okay, quarterback in the draft and Aaron Rodgers. And that is still the most likely scenario. But if it's not a quarterback in the draft, then why would there be a 4th quarterback? Why would there be somebody else that got brought in? So what that essentially confirmed to me, which is something we had speculated upon, is there is going to be a quarterback drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, whether that is a 1st rounder or a 7th rounder or anything in between, that's anybody's guess. We've obviously speculated upon Jalen Milroe. We've talked a little bit about Jackson Dart. Sanders is becoming a more prevalent question as time goes on here, as we get into April. But what it did signify to me is there is going to be a rookie quarterback in the Steelers quarterback room in 2025. And I like that. Depending on where they get him, obviously we can have that discussion at a later date, but I like the fact that they're bringing in somebody to be able to try to mold. Now, whether or not that ends up being the guy, again, discussion for a later date, but all of the discussion, all of the topics, every answer that we've gotten from those 2 guys over the last 2 days, I agree. From the outside looking in, not even having conversations with Mark Caboli and all your friends down there, it feels like this Aaron Rodgers thing is pointed in one direction, and that's the Steelers.
Yeah. And to be honest, shout out to Kaboom and all those guys, but the belief is more among the executives around the league, the owners around the league, those who sign the paychecks. And I think because of that, you got to feel confident that, okay, if they're hearing things, if steam's building there, then momentum's got to be in the right direction. And the Steelers, they got to be close. Now, a couple of things to understand in this situation is an offer has not changed, and it has never changed, and it's not going to. I saw a giant Rich Eisen fan, and he tossed out 2 years, $70 million or something like that, and I was like, that's not going to happen. I have no idea what the number is, but I do know it's most likely a 1-year deal. And I don't think that has changed since. I don't think Russ's contract changes much either. I don't think that, the fact that Russ signed a $21 million deal is going to impact Aaron Rodgers' money with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really, truly don't. It's just a matter of time and waiting and where they go from there. Now, if they don't, Omar did toss out trades on the table, and everybody's mind immediately goes to Kirk Cousins and says, is that an option? Like, are the Steelers going to go get that? I don't know what to believe in that situation. I think the Steelers would welcome Kirk with open arms. Hey, we'll go give up whatever we need to give up for Kirk Cousins and feel pretty good about giving anything up for Kirk, anything in the realm of reality up for Kirk Cousins. I don't think the Falcons are super open to it, but I also think that at some point there's going to be enough tension there that maybe that's there. When it comes to the draft, that's the big one here. As crazy as this sounds, the Steelers are historically not a trade back team. Omar didn't hint, but sure as hell said, getting back into the second round is plausible, is a situation that they could see themselves being a part of. That might mean next year's picks, but I mean, we are all anticipating that next year is a trade up and go get your guy and go use as many of those comp picks as possible. I mean, they might end up with 2 third-round comp picks. That's massive in this whole situation. That, to me, is like this year is a second, maybe a third-round guy. Next year is a first-round guy. Kind of gets you thinking about names like Jalen Milroe a little bit more. Kind of gets you thinking about names like Tyler Shuck and Quinn Ewers and maybe Will Howard a little bit more. And then if Aaron does not sign by whatever craziness that could happen, which it's Aaron Rodgers, we have no idea. It's the end of this. It's the one part that I was talking to somebody today. I was talking to a source today, and I laughed and I said, this is awesome. And they were like, what's awesome? And I just said, I cover the Steelers, man. I did not at any point in my life think that this is what was going to happen. That we would be tracking Aaron Rodgers' every movement for a month. That this is the saga we'd be on. And they laughed back and they were like, "It's fun, isn't it?" And I was like, "It's wild. It's a wild ride." So if for some reason it takes a turn and he doesn't end up in Pittsburgh, that quarterback that comes in here, like the veteran isn't a. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a challenger for Mason Rudolph, but I don't think it's like it's a huge challenger for me. I don't think they're going to trade for Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones or anything like. I don't even think realistically they're going to go trade for Kirk Cousins. Though I think that's more on the table than many other options. I think it's more of a, I don't want to say Joe Flacco, but maybe a Carson Wentz, maybe a Joe Flacco, like a guy that could be a number 2. You go draft a quarterback that could be a number 2. There's the competition. And then again, as we've said many times, you head towards next year. I think that's where we stand with the Steelers situation. Again, I expect it to be Aaron Rodgers, and I expect it to be Aaron Rodgers more than I've ever expected it to be Aaron Rodgers. That could change. Lots going on here. The other part of Omar and Mike Tomlin that I think is very significant, and I wanted to toss this out here real fast, okay? I got a one-word Mike Tomlin answer in a situation where there were 0 one-word Mike Tomlin answers. And that one-word Mike Tomlin answer was for all of you guys, okay? For everybody listening who has DM'd me, messaged me, called, tossed a message on here saying, is Jalen the guy? Mike Tomlin says yes. And that's all I needed to hear was, is Jalen a 3-down running back and starting quality running back in your eyes? Yes. Awesome. Sounds good. Question answered. George Pickens was the other one. And I asked Tomlin and I asked Omar, and Omar gave me a really good response on if DK Metcalf's acquisition means or changes anything for George Pickens in the future. And it doesn't. They both made it very clear. Mike made it clear that GP and DK are different players and could do different things, and they're going to try to utilize both of them in different ways. And then Omar made it very clear that, you want 2 star wide receivers in the NFL, and it does not change anything for the future of George Pickens or the Steelers' plan, which in my head, it went like this. This is what that means. It does not solidify that no matter what, George Pickens is going to be here in 2025. What it does do is most likely remove the chance of a George Pickens trade during the NFL draft. If you're going to trade Pickens, it's going to come with controversy. It's going to come with George not showing up or holding in during training camp, and there's just no chance that a deal's getting done. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that the Steelers are actively looking for a trade, and they most likely will at least try to see if they can figure something out with George and be able to keep both of them. That could definitely mean that they're going to wait a year before they sign him to a long-term deal, and they might explain that to him, but they are going to try to work it out with him and figure that thing out. And I think that's huge because I have been under the assumption that the Steelers do not have plans to even try to negotiate with George, and I don't think I took that away from today. I truly believe that Omar's answer to me gave me the thought of maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers are willing to have 2 star wide receivers and are willing to kind of figure this thing out with both of them to be able to sign George. Your thoughts change on that? I mean, you weren't there with Omar, but you've been pretty consistent, more consistent than I, on the fact that George might not be the guy that gets traded. You fought back on against me on that a couple of times. Does Omar's words kind of push that on you a little bit more?
Yeah, my assumption of the entire George Pickens situation all summer long has been, there remains a possibility that George gets traded, but I think that's more so up to George than it is the Steelers. If George wants to hold out, or if George wants to say, hey, I'm not playing unless I get a contract extension, then the Steelers might have their hand forced. But it felt like their hand needed to be forced the one thing that I need to constantly remind myself of, and I think this is something that a lot of people in the Steelers fan base need to start reminding themselves of, is this isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers under Kevin Colbert. And we have seen over the past 2 years, time and time again, example after example, that Omar Khan is running this ship much differently. Last year, he was trying to make a home run acquisition at wide receiver for Brandon Ayuk. Everybody said, well, that's not what the Steelers do. Well, maybe under Omar Khan, maybe it is.
Yes.
Omar Khan did trade for DK Metcalf and gave him a $130 million contract, $150 million contract. And people said, well, that's not what the Steelers do. Well, maybe it's what Omar Khan does. And now everybody is saying, even after those examples and many more, quarterback position is another one. The fact that they've gone complete scratch the last 2 years and said, we're going to build it from nothing. Even after all those examples, myself included, a lot of people have said, well, this means George is gone because the Steelers don't pay for 2 wide receivers. Maybe it's just what Omar Khan does. And maybe we just haven't learned that yet, that we cannot look at the Steelers as an organization anymore and say what they did 10 years ago tells us what they're going to do in the future. That just might not be the case anymore. And I have to kind of unlearn myself to that reality, because Steelers fans have been primed and taught that, hey, they do what they've been doing. Maybe not anymore. Maybe Omar Khan brings a completely new feel to this organization, and maybe he views team building completely differently than we have seen from anybody else in a Pittsburgh Steelers GM chair. So maybe they do get a deal done. I don't know how they do it, but again, the more we hear from Omar Khan and the Steelers organization, the more you realize this is not the same old Steelers, and anything and everything could be on the table with Omar Khan.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the biggest thing here, is that you just don't know. At the end of the day, you have no idea what things are going to be different and how they're approaching things. And, you know, they have a defense in place. That's such a massive part here, is they have a defense in place. They have to pay TJ, but like their contracts are done. Like they're young, they're developed, they have the vets that they need. Like they have money to spend, and they don't have the defensive urgency to go spend it on defense. So it's offense. It's the offensive side of the football that you're looking to spend the money on. Quarterback's not going to cost you a boatload of money. And next year, quarterback's going to cost you no money, because you are going to go with either a rookie or a second-year guy. So you have money to spend in the future. Maybe George Pickens is where you spend that, especially if you're looking at it going, the offensive line most likely is in place. There are going to be changes, but those are most likely going to come through the NFL draft. And that's pretty set in stone. Running back, Jaylen Warren is signed. Chances are they're going to draft another one who's going to be the guy, and maybe Jaylen comes back on another deal next year, or maybe he runs himself out of Pittsburgh because he costs too much money like Najee did. That's certainly on the table. Pat Fryermuth's signed. DK is signed. Where's the money going? You know, you're not just going to sit around with $60 million in salary cap space and say that's just okay. You know, we're fine with that just in case. No, you're going to spend it. You're going to spend it on guys that it deserves to be spent on. That's potentially George Pickens. That's where we're standing with George Pickens. I truly, this is the first time that I think my mind is shifting on the matter, and things could change, obviously. And his decision at training camp is going to play such a significant role in this entire saga. But I'm open to admit that my train of thought throughout this might have been a little off, maybe a little presumptuous, you know, with, okay, you know, they are looking for, and don't get me wrong, like I don't report anything to you guys unless I'm told something. And I was clearly told that, you know, George is a name to watch as a trade candidate. And okay, great. I'm going to tell everybody that because I was told that. Maybe when is different. And also maybe the train of thought has changed over the last couple of weeks or so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens. It's developing. It's ongoing. But the Pittsburgh Steelers certainly have the door open to have George Pickens and DK, which would be awesome. You know, you want to talk ridiculous wide receiver core and come a long way. George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and Roman Wilson, who they anticipate to be back this season. Huge. Absolutely huge. Now, before we dive in and finish our little segment here, There's I think somebody's talking right here. Can you guys hear them? I believe somebody's doing a podcast directly behind me. A little bit. Yeah. 2 feet to my right here, as you were talking, I hear this like up tempo like music, like this techno music playing, and I looked over. It's I'm gonna let everybody walk by before I start name dropping here. A lot of people walking by, so we're gonna have to wait a second. It's Brian Dable bending down, tying his shoe, cigar this long in his mouth, just chilling. It's 12:26 in the afternoon. That is a man that knows how to enjoy Palm Beach. Shout out to Brian Dable. All right. With that said, that's everything on our agenda. That's the biggest update so far from Palm Beach and everything going on here at the league meetings. No Ireland game date announced yet. We're going to wait for that one, which I wasn't anticipating, but I was a little hopeful that we got a little head start on when to book flights and trips to Ireland. But again, we'll wait and see on that one. George Pickens, Aaron Rodgers, everything going on there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to answer all your questions. But first, we got a quick word from our boys over at Penalty Verdict.
What's up, Steelers Nation? I'm here to tell you about our new partner, Penalty Verdict. You ever watch college or NFL games and think, that call wasn't right? Yeah, we all do. Now you can vote on it. With the Penalty Verdict app, you can vote on NFL and college football penalties in real time. Use the app to share your thoughts and engage in a community with fans who are looking for fair and accountable play. Unlock the next dimension of sports by engaging with real-time polling on referees, players, and teams. Then, view data-driven insight to have informed discussions about the game. Penalty Verdict is in the developmental phase and would love to hear feedback from you. What features do you want to see in the app next football season? Vote on NFL and college football penalty calls in real time with Penalty Verdict. Use our link.penaltyverdict.com/allsteelerstalk to get started today.
Shout out our boys over at Penalty Verdict. All right, we're going to finish off the show the same way we do every single day. We are going to answer all of your questions or most of your questions. So toss them in the chat. We'll get to them, as many of them as we possibly can. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to our members. Appreciate all you guys. Make sure to call into our call-in show for Wednesday. And with that, Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Let's kick things off with Lord Knows, who says, quick question. Should the Steelers skip defensive tackle and take a chance at Desmond Watson late in this year's draft?
I think that Desmond Watson's going to go undrafted. So the way I would do it is draft. I mean, Kenneth Grant in the first round is still my pick for the Steelers. That's not going to change. I ran into someone the other day at a restaurant, and I made it very clear, like, you know, it's Kenneth Grant. And shout out to Salam, I believe his name is. It was awesome. It was awesome, and my family was pretty pumped to see that in person. So appreciate you. Kenneth Grant is still my pick, remains my pick. That's not going to change. It makes too much sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's versatile. He could play inside. He could play nose tackle. I mean, he is the perfect prospect for what the Steelers are looking for this offseason. And that's the one remaining need outside of quarterback that you really look at and go, the Steelers have to add somebody, right? Yeah, Kenneth Grant makes a ton of sense. Watson, on the other hand, I look at him and go, why just not sign him? You know, go sign the big man as an undrafted guy and say, if he works out, awesome. You know, we have a 420-pound defensive tackle. That's fantastic. And if he doesn't, you didn't use a draft pick on him. I don't think he gets drafted. I think it's very difficult to take a chance on a guy that big and expect him to work out. Like, once you reach a certain size, you're just too big. But I do think that as an undrafted guy, I would take a shot on him. And I think the Steelers should too.
Let's go to Maddie, who says, do you think taking a quarterback in the first round is more realistic now than it was before? I don't think we should keep waiting around for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think that answer is coming soon. I do. I don't know exactly when, but there's a pretty strong belief that answer is coming and that the decision has been made. It's just a matter of when that announcement comes and if anything changes, which something could change. But the Steelers are very patient. And they've made it known down here that it's not impacting their draft plans, which tells me that they're not preparing to draft a guy in the first round. And they are still confident in where things go. There's still ongoing communication. That has not changed. And that's important, to understand is the fact that they're still talking, the fact that nobody's in the dark, the fact that Aaron is communicating his thoughts with the Steelers most likely means that the Steelers are able to plan the rest of their offseason around Aaron Rodgers. I apologize, the car's coming by me right now. Plan their offseason around Aaron Rodgers. But the one position that they are not going to make drastic moves with in the NFL draft seems to be quarterback. I have a hard time believing they're going to draft quarterback in the first round, where we stand right now.
Let's jump down to Miguel, who says it looks like the 49ers might be moving on from Brock Purdy. Should Khan look at making a move for him? No one else in this draft has his upside currently.
Yeah, I agree, but nobody else a lot of people in maybe 4 or 5 people in next year's draft has his upside currently. And I think I'd go that approach, and I think the Steelers are going that approach. Brock Purdy's awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like, Brock Purdy's a guy that's been to the mountaintop. He's done that. That's what the Steelers are looking for, but you're going to have to pay him $50 million a year. I think that's too much money to invest in a quarterback right now. And you're going to rely on the massive question of Kyle Shanahan's offense or Brock Purdy. Great wide receiver core, Brock Purdy, Christian McCarthy or Brock Purdy. What is it? And I think that plays a pretty big role into this, where it's still a risk, but an expensive risk, where you could go lesser risk next year and potentially get a guy that's here for the next decade plus, and you don't have to pay him for 5 years. I think that's the way the Steelers would handle it. I don't think Brock Purdy's actually on the table for them.
Let's jump to Justin, who says, I think our biggest needs in order: nose tackle, running back, corner, quarterback, and then a guard.
Quarterback's obviously first, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy most likely. So I agree with that. They would put that on the back burner. Nose tackle's huge. I agree. I don't think you pass up defensive tackle. The Steelers defense is set. It's ready. It's there. All the pieces are in place except for a defensive tackle to replace Larry Ogunjobi. You move Keanu Benton over, you draft Kenneth Grant, solved, ready to go. Boom. Beautiful. Running back, I think, is up there. I don't know if I'd put it second, but I do think it's close. I think you need a corner long term. I think you need an offensive tackle that can play swing and potentially start. I do think you need competition for Mason McCormick, but where you get that competition is still up in the air. But I do think that's there too. I think all 5 of these are the top 5. Guard, I would change to lineman. But besides that, I feel pretty good about this order. I do think nose tackle stands very firmly in first place, though.
Let's go to everybody's favorite UPS driver, Steven, who says, Noah, are you preparing to sharpen your razor for our wager?
Yes, I am. My wife will hate me. It's got to be after my brother's wedding. There's no chance I'm showing up clean faced to my brother's wedding. He'd kill me. And I'd look real, nobody knows what's going on under here until you realize what's going on under here. It's a scary time. So yeah, I am ready. I'm feeling better about it today I'm feeling worse about it today than I felt about it when we made it. I think there's a chance GP's here, man. I do think there's a chance GP's here.
Let's go to Matthew, who says, if Shedeur Sanders falls outside the top 10, would the Steelers' 21st pick and GP be enough to trade up for him hypothetically?
I definitely, but I don't think the Steelers are willing to make a move up for Shedeur Sanders. I don't. There's a lot that comes with Shedeur Sanders that I don't think the Steelers are looking for. They're going Aaron Rodgers this year, and I think they're learning the chaos that comes with that type of situation. And whether Shedeur is that guy or not, he comes with that type of situation. And I don't think the Steelers are necessarily looking for that in a rookie quarterback. I also don't think that they view this year's draft as the draft they're going to find their franchise quarterback. I think it's next year. So their plan's long term. And those are the pieces that are being put together here. Like, Khan spoke about comp picks and how they're feeling good about the comp picks, and it just everything sounds like the Steelers are ready to make a move in next year's draft to go get their guy. And this year's draft is just about finding a backup and competition, and that's what we've been saying. But it kind of just solidified the whole thing. So I don't think Shedeur is on their table. I think it would work. I think if you give up 20, 21 and GP and move up to 15, to go get Shedeur, I don't think you're getting all the way to 10 without giving up a first round pick next year. But I don't think the Steelers are going to move up to go get a quarterback. I don't think that's on the table.
Let's go to Jerry, who says, do you think if we go with another 10-win season this year, we still have a legitimate chance of grabbing the number one quarterback in next year's draft?
No, but I don't think the Steelers are legitimately looking for the number one pick in next year's draft. I think they're realistically looking for pick number 7, pick number 5, pick number 10, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on where the rest of the draft class is. I think that's what they're aiming for, and that's what they believe is realistic, is can you go get, Garrett Nisima or whatever his name is, or Nico, not ever going to even try it, Drew Aller at that 5, that 7, that 10 spot, and draft your guy there. I think that's where they're headed. That's where they feel good about, and that's realistic. Like, you could do that with the first next year, couple of thirds, and then your first the year after, and not have to give up too much to go get a quarterback and still land a guy that you think is franchise quarterback material.
Let's go to Polo, who says, what's up from Sacramento? Wanted to say we never prepared for life without Big Ben. Who's at fault for being in this quarterback hell? Also, shout out to my brother Angel, who is also a huge fan.
Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Polo. Appreciate you both. I think it's a mixture of everybody. I do. I think Ben said a really bad statement by the way he went about Mason Rudolph. That sent a message to the Steelers that said Ben's going to ruin any quarterback that we try to bring in here. The Steelers should have kind of gutsed up a little bit and said, we don't care, Ben. We are bringing in the guy after you, and we are preparing for you and to leave. And they should have did that in 2019 when he blew out his elbow. That should have been the year that they said, okay, we need somebody behind you. So I think it's both. And then I think that they overreacted the year that he left and went and got Kenny, which I'm pretty sure is, that was an Art Rooney call. And I think you could put that on there too. So I think it goes across the board. I think it's Ben. I think it's Colbert. I think it's Tomlin, and I think it's Rooney. I think everybody involved is the reason that the Steelers are where they are quarterback-wise and why they weren't able to figure this thing out sooner rather than later.
Let's jump down to Real-ish, who says, if the Steelers do get the number one overall pick next year via trade, and your options are Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, the SC quarterback, who I think's name is Mason Miller, Drew Aller, and Carson Beck, who are you taking, and who is your ideal choice?
I mean, Arch Manning is the ideal choice if he works out, but I am interested to see what he looks like this season. I joked as Omar was walking out of the room, I said, at what point do you call Peyton and say, hey, what's the temp on Arch coming out of the draft? What date do you make that phone call? But I think Arch is the ideal first candidate if anybody, or if he lives up to expectations this season. I would go Newsomer next. He I think has everything you're looking for in. Sorry, we just got Aaron Rodgers was recently spotted leaving a hotel in Taiwan, I want to say. Could be wrong there. Yeah, shout out to
long way from UCLA.
Long way from UCLA, huh? Yeah. How about that one? But that's all right. The guy's on the move always. What we do know is he's not in Pittsburgh. He's not here. I would go Newsomer next. Then I would go, to be honest with you, I'd go Nico out of Tennessee. Drew Aller makes me nervous. USC quarterbacks make me more nervous. So I think I'd go Drew Aller after that one. But Arch Manning, if he lives up to expectations, is the answer for both of these. I just think that the mentorship that you have alone is just too difficult to pass up. And people bring up all the time, like, go look at Garrett's tape it's terrible. Yeah, but it's not about tape. It's about the prospect. It's about what you could bring to the NFL. Go look at Josh Allen. Go look at Patrick Mahomes. Very average college football quarterbacks. Massive upside. That's what Garrett brings. That's what Arch Manning brings, as long as he brings it to the table this season.
Quick correction. It's Miller Moss is the guy out of USC.
Miller Moss. That's who it is. I
I
knew it was Miller.
Yeah. I know it was so we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's go to Axel Snappers, who says, quick question for you. Did they feed you the same hot chicken that they must have given Coach T before his conference yesterday?
It was today, actually, and I felt bad for him because he said it when he sat down. He was like, oh, I just got out of the shower, dude. I'm pouring sweat. And it's hot. Like, I'm sweating now, as you guys can probably tell. Like, it's warm out here. It's humid. To be wearing a long sleeve shirt, no chance. And then to be it was what I felt bad because it was that like after shower, gotta rush, your body temperature's steaming hot right now. Now there's lights and cameras on you, people asking you questions, like not an ideal situation for anybody to not be sweating in. So much respect to Mike T for battling through that 100%.
Let's go to Forever, who says, is there anybody in the UFL that the Steelers are currently looking at?
I think it's too early to have any idea if they are. You know, those are guys that typically get signed right before training camp. I would imagine that's the case now. I don't see the Steelers having their eyes on that league like this second. It just started on Friday. So as we get later, there will be names to watch, obviously, but it's too early, and I don't think they're paying attention yet.
Let's go down to Realish, who wants to remind everybody who he goes to for quarterback rankings. Says, for the love of goodness, please ask the Steelers to watch Chris Sims' quarterback rankings. Don't think anybody is more accurate at predicting quarterback success.
Look it. I could tell you, Realish, right now, Mike Tomlin has no idea that Chris Sims does a quarterback ranking, and he does not care. So I hate to burst your bubble, brother. I hate to do it, but it's just, I doubt it. I doubt he has any idea. I bet you if he brought, I mean, the dude barely remembered his punter yesterday, let alone Chris Sims, who doesn't even play in the NFL. I think he's got I don't think he would. I could ask him. I could tell him, you know, I'm going to be there tonight. I'll talk to him tonight, and I'll say, hey, you watch Chris Sims? But I think I'm going to have bad reports for you tomorrow about how he says no. I think that's going to be the case.
Let's jump to Brian, who says, question, have you looked into Curtis Rourke at quarterback? He would be a great 7th round option.
Yeah, I think he's got, you know, he kind of reminds me of a lesser Kyle McCord. That's kind of how I view Adam. He's got the prototypical what you're looking for, quarterback, decent mobility. Like, it's not bad. I think it's all there. But I don't know if the Steelers are looking that late for an option. They could be. They could find themselves in the 7th round being a team that's saying, all right, we haven't drafted a quarterback. We need to draft somebody. But where we sit right now, I would imagine it's earlier. I'm thinking 2nd, 3rd round is the sweet spot for them. 4th, 5th is realistic as well. I think once you get into the 7th, you're starting to play games and take some chances, and I don't think the Steelers are going to do that.
Let's go down to David, who says, what do you think of Milroe being the one throwing bombs to DK and GP?
Yeah, I talked to an Alabama person. I don't honestly know the exact way to word it, because if you talk to somebody in the Steelers front office, it's an executive. I don't know what it would be in college. And they told me that everybody's making a big deal out of Jalen Milroe not being a good quarterback, but if that guy steps back and launches it, he's going to launch it. I was like, all right, that sounds good to me. So he does have bombs. I think in the 2nd or the 3rd round, that makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. He's been a guy that I've said numerous times just feels like he's the one the Steelers are like very under the radar looking at. Quinn Ewers is another name. Will Howard is another name. I would imagine those 3, if they're there at 83, are the 3 that they're picking from, you know, and Milroe probably stands tall because of his athleticism and the fact that, like, the ceiling is just through the roof. You just got to be able to get to that ceiling. So I'm not against it. I think it's honestly a good pick at the right price.
Let's go to Shower Curtain, who says, do you think the strategy or smokescreen is not to divulge the Rodgers signing until right before the draft or even just after the 1st round?
Yeah, I understand. But so if it's a handshake agreement, then it's wild how under the radar this is, because, like, here's the thing, like, it's somebody in that building would have a conversation with somebody, like, it would just be so difficult to keep that under wraps for that long. It really would. There's just too many things that go on, and too many people that would know. I don't think that's the case. I genuinely do think that Aaron is really taking his grand sweet old time with this situation. And whenever he says, all right, we're good, then, they'll be good. But I do think there's somewhat of an understanding the Steelers are the heavy favorites right now. I do think that's the case.
Let's go back to David, who says, who do we get to help out our running game?
Probably a rookie. Trey Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Dylan Sampson in later rounds. That's where I'm going if I'm the Steelers. And I think that's where they're headed too, is whoever's there, maybe 83, maybe in the 4th round at 121, I believe. That's when the Steelers are going to look for a running back. Wouldn't rule it out of the 1st round, but I do think it's very unlikely that it's in the 1st round. If I had to guess, it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of that 3rd, 4th round with all of those options on the table. But Jalen's going to be the starter in week 1.
Let's jump to Intricate, who says, does TJ's end of year stats affect his new contract?
No. Omar Khan has made that very, very aware to us that, TJ's a one helmet guy. He's going to retire a Steeler. The Steelers are very confident that he's going to retire a Steeler. That's not going to change. TJ's here. He's not going anywhere, And I'm guessing his contract is less than 40, but very close to 40, very close to that 40 mark.
Let's go back to Forever, who says, if the Browns draft Abdul Carter out of Penn State, do you have faith that our tackles can hold up against Garrett and Carter at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea yet. We're going to see, but you got to hope so. I got a lot of faith that Troy Fautanu is a very good player. I do think he's very, very good, and I'm very excited to see him after a knee injury. Broderick is sorry. There's a giant FedEx truck pulling up right now because obviously.
This is a UPS podcast. We got you, Steven.
Yeah. Get out of here. Broderick, there's big question marks, but you got to give him a shot, and you got to be prepared to ride it out with him and hope that it works out. You got to treat him like a 3rd-year guy so he doesn't get the rookie window. He doesn't get the changed positions window either. Like, if he stinks, you replace him, but you gotta test him. And I honestly don't know. Like, I don't have a ton of faith in it, but I do think that they have the pieces that they have to give an opportunity to stop them, and we'll kind of see what happens.
Let's go to Cree, who says, sorry if this has been addressed. I just got in, but I have heard Pittsburgh is comfortable with Mason Rudolph starting. If that's true, why not just forget about Aaron Rodgers?
They're comfortable with Mason Rudolph starting if Aaron Rodgers does not sign. But Aaron signing is priority 1, will remain priority 1. That's not going to change. The Steelers are all in on Aaron. They want Aaron to be the guy. They feel confident in Aaron. They feel confident in their Super Bowl odds with Aaron. Like, that's plan A, Backup plan is most likely Mason Rudolph. And they feel comfortable with that, but it's a different level of confidence. It's okay, we're stuck with Mason. That's cool. We can ride it out with him, but it's not like Mason's our guy. Let's do this. He's a good plan B, even though the Steelers won't use the word plan B. So it's different. Aaron Rodgers' level of confidence and then Mason Rudolph's level of confidence they hinder on each other, and that's why you're not going to forget about Aaron Rodgers.
Let's go to Shower Curtain, who wants to know, do the Steelers trade with Chicago at number 10 if Ashton Ginty is still on the board?
No, I don't think so. I think it would take a lot to get up to 10, ton to get up to 10. Like, you're giving up a 1st-round pick minimum next year, probably a couple of 3rds. No, they're saving their draft picks. Next year, they're going to make a move. I'm telling you. Like, that's – if I'm wrong, call me out on it. But I'm feeling pretty confident that the Steelers' plan is not to move up this year, maybe to move back. And to save next year and say, all right, let's go get our franchise quarterback. And because of that, they're not going to take a shot. They feel good about Jaylen Warren. They feel comfortable with him as a starter. They believe in him as a starter. He's given them everything to believe in as a starter. Go get another guy that can work behind him. Use Kenneth Gainwell. Feel good about that. I don't think Ashton Genty in a trade up is where they sit right here.
Not to mention the fact that the Bears probably would like to have Ashton Genty to play behind Caleb Williams.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just don't think – I think it would take too much and Ashton Genty be too big of a name to go make a move there.
Let's go to Shay, who says, do you think this year's 4th and next year's 3rd would get us Anthony Richardson from the Colts?
Yeah, probably. But I don't think that the Steelers are looking that way. If Aaron doesn't sign, the Steelers could look that way. But I don't think a trade, like, a trade's on the table, but it's like such a backup plan and would have to come together so quickly that I just don't. You can't anticipate what happening. You know, I think that if the Steelers were presented an offer, or if something became, you know, if Anthony Richardson stunk in training camp and the Steelers didn't have a quarterback, okay. But I just don't think that trading for a guy like Kirk Cousins is different. You know, you go get Kirk, he's your star quarterback. There's no questions to it. Anthony Richardson, you're going to battle him out. I just don't think that's where they're headed. I don't think that's where they're looking right now. Although 3rd and a 4th would be a good pick. I just don't think that they're making those calls. We're getting a lot of guests here.
A lot of cameos on today's episode. Let's go to Jason, who says, what do you think of Lenoris Sellers in the 2026 draft?
To be honest, haven't watched a lot of tape, but I do know the name. And I mean, he's got the hype, you know. I think that he's there. What year of school is he in? He's definitely coming out in the 2026 NFL draft. I might be wrong on this one. Or maybe I'm new to the game of Lenoris Sellers. He's not my top 5, I'll tell you that.
As of right now, it says that he's a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah, okay. That would make sense. It's right around what I was thinking. Like, I was like, he's young. He's not my top 5 right now, but he could climb in there. And I do think he presents a lot of upside. So I'm open to it. I do think you put him on the list if he does come out. And that's the best part about next year is, like, you have to create a list for next year because the Steelers aren't going to sit with the number 1 pick in the draft. They're not going to own it. So you have to decide where could they move up realistically to go get a quarterback. Having more options is better for them, and that gives us better options to kind of dissect.
Let's go to Alex real quick, who says, what is your top 5 out of curiosity for next year?
For the quarterbacks, let's assume Arch Manning's coming out. Arch Manning, Nico
Iamaleava.
Thank you. Garrett Newsomer. Hate to do this, Drew Aller. And then I'd probably Moss is probably in my top 5 right now. I don't think he's going to be. I'm nervous about USC quarterbacks, but those are my 4 for sure, and in that order. You know, I think Garrett could pass Nico by the end of the season, but I think both of those guys are studs. And then Drew Aller to me is a 4, strong 4, but you know is below them because I need to see him step up in bigger games a little bit more often.
All right, now that's a wrap for today.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. But before we go, we got big news, sad news, super exciting news at the same time. So I'll give it to you straight. Once again, I am here to make a very proud announcement on All Steelers Talk, and that is that our boy, Nick Belsky, is headed elsewhere. I will say this, okay? We're not allowed to say where. Big things are coming, later announcements, so on and so forth. Before I give you the floor on this one, I will say this. Donnie Droon showed up and created this thing with me. Derek Bell showed up and made this thing real because me and Donnie were just idiots talking football. And Derek Bell knew what he was talking about. Stephen Thompson showed up and made this thing, you know, big. You know, Stephen Thompson showed up and it was like, okay, let's do this. Let's really put our foot to the floor here, pedal to the metal, and let's make this a real podcast. Nick Belsky showed up and took us from nothing to this. And where this is awesome. you look around everywhere, and I run into people constantly that are always telling me, dude, love you and Nick, man. Love you and Nick. So excited to watch it. We watch you guys every single day. I mean, I go to coffee shops and people tell me they watch our TikToks. I go to restaurants and people stop me and tell me how big of a fan we are. I go everywhere. And we have people pounding the table to make shirts about things that we say. That is all because of Nick Belsky. So it needed to happen because you're too good for this. You're too good to sit in a screen at the bottom of a podcast. But I'm proud and I'm very, very grateful, dude. Like, I am incredibly grateful and will remain grateful because this went from cool podcast, a lot of fun, have a good time doing it, to like something I never thought was going to happen, and gave me visions that are so much bigger than I ever thought were imaginable. So I thank you for that. I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. And like everybody else, I'm sad, but we'll keep it going because you set us up good. So I'll give you the floor on that one. But one last time, I want to say thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate all the kind words. The 2 years that I've spent on this show, first being able to just sit back and watch you and Steven be able to produce and try to just, put my stamp on it as much as I can. And that's what I really appreciate from you, is you made this as your baby, and then you.
What a time to freeze, huh?
In the way you want, and do what you want to try to make sure that this can get as big as possible. So you really just gave me the keys to the kingdom, and I appreciate your trust in me to do that. And just the 2 years has been so much fun. Just to be able to sit here every single day and talk Steelers football, whether that's in the heart of the season or whether that's in the middle of summer, whenever birds are flying by your head and you're down in Florida. It's been a wild ride from behind the camera to in front of the camera and everything in between. Being able to interact with all these listeners every single day has been such a joy. And I really appreciate my entire time here. And I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity that I'll get for those who are interested. I'll post about it at a later date. Just find me on Twitter at Nick Belsky. You'll know what's going to go on. I'm not a quiet person, so I'll make sure that everybody knows what's going on. But no, the 2 years that I've been here, they molded me into what I am today, and they molded me into what made me desirable to get the opportunity that I'm about to get. So I appreciate you, and I thank you for that, because you're a big part of that. So thank you to the entire All Steelers Talk fan base and the listenership. I've had people stop me in restaurants and scare the crap out of me. The first time it happened, somebody came up to me and said, "Are you Nick Belsky?" And I said, "Oh no, what did I do? Like, what is about to happen?" And it was All Steelers Talk in Washington, D.C., of all places too. So I appreciate the listeners. And of course, it goes without saying, but I appreciate everything that you've done for me, Noah, because you've molded me into the producer I am today. And obviously, I'm very happy with what that's looked like.
Of course, dude. Of course. Excited for the news to come. Excited for you. For everybody else, do not worry. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking here. In the meantime, it'll be a lot of my face and a lot of my voice, and we'll power through. But social media is not dumbing down. The podcast isn't changing at all. We're still rocking, just without Nick's face and Nick's words at the bottom there. So we'll keep trucking through, and as more updates come, I'll make sure that I share them. But again, like I said, nothing's changing. Super pumped for Nick. Well deserved, and future's bright, guys, for a good old Mr. Belsky. And and we'll get him on the podcast again, because when he finally emerges from the darkness
retreat that I'm about to go on. Yeah.
Then we will make sure that he provides some updates here on good old All Steelers Talk. But with that said, y'all, we're heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We'll let it go with Nick one more time, and I will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg.